So today we're digging into the game plan for South Africa's capital city, Tshwane. And look, this isn't just another boring government document. It's the actual blueprint for how five very different political parties are supposed to work together to run a city. The big question is, how do they turn all those political promises into actual pavement on the ground? Let's dive in.
It really all boils down to this one central question. I mean, think about it. What happens when you take five distinct political parties, each with their own ideas, their own voters, and you tell them, okay, you're all in charge of one massive city? You might expect chaos, right? Total gridlock? Well, this isn't some hypothetical classroom exercise. This was the reality facing the city of Tshwane right after the 2021 elections.
And the answer they came up with? They decided to draw up a shared blueprint for how to govern. It's honestly the best way to think about it, like an architectural plan for a skyscraper. Before you can even dig the foundation, all the partners, the architects, the engineers, the construction crews, they all have to agree on the design. That's exactly what this coalition agreement is supposed to be. One single, unified plan to build a better city together. So here's how we're going to walk through this blueprint. First, we'll look at the political deal that made this whole thing necessary. Then, we'll dive into the five foundational pillars holding the agreement up. After that, we'll get into the nitty-gritty, the 10-point action plan. And finally, we'll see how they plan to actually turn all this talk into action. Okay, first up, the political deal itself. You have to understand, this situation wasn't born out of a landslide victory. It came from a fractured election result, which meant everyone had to find some common ground to stand on.
So picture this. It's just after the local government elections in November 2021. The dust settles and nobody won. No single party got enough votes to govern Tshwane by themselves. This led to a pretty interesting coalition of five different parties: the Democratic Alliance, Action SA, the Freedom Front Plus, the African Christian Democratic Party, and the Inkatha Freedom Party. They knew they couldn't just wing it, so they realized they needed a formal, written-down framework to guide them for their entire term.
Now, let's get to the foundation of this whole structure, the five core pillars. If the agreement is the blueprint, these pillars are the massive concrete and steel supports holding the entire thing up. These are the non-negotiable values that all five parties shook hands on and agreed to follow. And here they are, the big five. We've got accountability and transparency, ethical government, meritocracy, non-racialism and inclusivity, and finally, evidence-based policy. Now, I know, these can sound like just a bunch of buzzwords, but each one is a very specific promise. So let's quickly break down what they actually mean. First on the list, accountability and transparency. This is basically a promise to make the city's business your business. It's a commitment to being an open book so that you, the resident, can actually see how your money is being spent and understand the why behind big decisions. No more backroom deals. Next is ethical government. And this one is huge. It's a straight-up pledge to uphold the rule of law, meaning nobody is above it. It's also about drawing a hard line in the sand between the political parties and the actual city administration. City business should be just that, city business, not party business. And, of course, it's a promise to actively hunt down and root out corruption. The third pillar is all about meritocracy. This means a zero-tolerance policy for patronage. No more jobs for your pals or political allies. The principle is simple. Every single city job from the top down has to be filled based on merit and who is actually best for the role. The goal is a professional public service, not a political one. Pillar 4, non-racialism and inclusivity, is a really interesting balancing act. It commits the city to tackling historical injustices to create an economy that includes everyone. But, and this is a key detail, it specifies that this will be done without using rigid racial or gender-based quotas in hiring or city contracts. And the final pillar, evidence-based policy. This is all about letting the data do the talking, not just political ideology. The city is committing to making decisions based on cold, hard facts. So for example, instead of just guessing where a new clinic should go, they'll use health statistics and population data to figure out exactly where it's needed most. And this slide right here perfectly connects the dots. On the left, you have the why, those five big principles we just covered. And on the right, you have the what, the actual real-world areas where those principles get put into action. It shows you the direct line from an idea like ethics to a priority like city safety. It all flows together. So let's talk about that action. We're moving into the 10-point action plan. This is where the blueprint stops being about philosophy and starts being a list of what needs to get done. This is the what of governing. Now, the coalition didn't try to solve every single problem at once. Instead, they focused their energy, their money, and their attention on 10 specific strategic priorities that are meant to define their entire time in office. And here they are, the Big 10. You can see it's a mix. You have the absolute fundamentals, like prioritizing infrastructure and financial oversight. Then there's the stuff that affects residents every single day, like city safety and health and wellness. And they're also looking to the future with things like economic growth, environmental protection, and digitization. It's a pretty complete vision. Let's just zoom in on a few of these to see what they mean in practice. So the number one priority is infrastructure, which the plan calls the city's lifeblood. And they're not just talking about fixing potholes here. This is about securing the really critical stuff, the electrical grid and the water systems. A massive goal is to reduce how much the city depends on ESCOM and to lessen the pain of load shedding, which, as we all know, is a killer for economic growth. Next up, financial oversight. This isn't just about balancing a budget. It's about aggressively protecting the city's bank account. This commitment to value for money means they're fighting to get the absolute best price for everything they buy, stretching every single taxpayer rand as far as it can possibly go. And that fiscal discipline is what pays for all the other priorities on the list. And on city safety, the plan gets really specific. It talks about creating these special task teams to go after massive problems like illegal land invasions and the cable theft that cripples infrastructure for weeks at a time. This ties right into their other goal of reclaiming public spaces and making communities feel safer and healthier for everyone. Okay, so we have the principles. We have the priorities. But the most important question is still hanging out there. How does any of this actually get done? This final section is all about the mechanism designed to turn this entire blueprint into reality on the streets of Tshwane. The key here is something called a performance management framework. You can think of it as the city's own internal quality control system. Those 10 priorities aren't just suggestions on a poster. They are physically built into the city's budget and every department's goals. This means every city manager's performance is literally measured by how well they deliver on the plan. It's the system that ensures promises are kept. So let's just recap the entire flow here. It starts with a coalition agreement, where 5 parties agree to govern together. From that agreement, they establish the 5 core principles. That's their foundational why. Those principles then directly inform the 10 strategic priorities. That's their operational what. To make sure it all gets done, they use a performance management system to measure progress. And the whole point of this entire structure is tangible service delivery for the people of Tshwane. And that really brings us to the end. The blueprint is detailed, it's logical, and it's definitely ambitious. It shows a clear path from a very complicated political situation to a set of goals you can actually measure. But a blueprint, at the end of the day, is still just a plan on paper. So the final crucial question we're all left with is this. With the blueprint in place, how will the building actually rise? The foundation has been laid, but the heavy lifting has only just begun.